How you doing, folks? I've loaded up two $16 Sitngo tournaments here on PokerStars. And what I want to accomplish here today with you guys is to teach you guys how to become profitable, winning sit and go poker players. There's a lot of money to be made in online poker playing sit and goes, especially at low stakes where most people just really don't know what they're doing, don't know how to play, and really aren't, I guess, aware of what the optimal plays are and how to really make the profitable plays that are going to consistently get you in the money in these type of tournaments. So um, that first hand there, 9-5 suited, that's a definite fold out of position. And I'm going to explain a few concepts here that are vital to you guys learning the proper strategy when playing in these sit and goes. So the first thing I really want to talk about is positional play. Now, if you'll notice when I start talking, there's a few different terms I'll be using, such as to describe the different positional spots of the table. So I think most people are aware of the button, as well as the small blind, which is directly to the left of the button, and then the big blind to the left of the button. Here, 5-10 offsuit is just something you don't want to play in the small blind. You're going to be out of position. I'll explain out of position in a second and why that's bad, so I'm just going to give that a fold there. So we have the small blind, big blind, and then the player to the left of the big blind we call under the gun because they're first act pre-flop. And then following around to like your middle position players, and then your late position players. The person to the right of the button is known as the cutoff position. Then we have the button here. Queen 9 offsuit here. This is definitely not a strong hand that so you definitely don't want to be raising here in these type of sit and goes where people just love splashing around. So I'm just going to check and hope to hit a strong flop here. If I don't hit anything, I'm just going to check and check fold and give up on that. Here I'm on the button with Jack 3 offsuit. Not a hand you want to play. Not a hand I want to be calling a $40 raise to. So it's a definite fold there. Wait for a better spot. So now that we've sort of defined our positions at the table, I want to talk about why positional play is so important, and it's one of the most important concepts to really learn on your way towards becoming a really profitable poker player. Whether you're playing sit and goes, whether you're playing cash games, whether you're playing Friday nights with your buddies who are drinking beer and just want to have fun, or whether you're playing online with random people and you're trying to make some extra cash for yourself. Positional play is just one of the most key concepts, and I'm going to explain why. Reason being, the person who has the benefit of acting last on each street has such an advantage because on each street you get the opportunity to act after your opponent has. So you get that additional information of how your opponent responds to each new card or to each street to sort of take into account when deciding what you think is the most optimal move for you to make. And I'll get back to that in a second. So here I've raised up ace 3 suited here in the cutoff position. So this is a hand that I definitely wouldn't be playing if I'm in the blinds or under the gun. I'd just fold that. I wouldn't be raising. But since it's folded around to me, there's a good likelihood that I can steal the blinds, or even if one of them calls, I can take down the pot a lot with a continuation bet. But now that I got 3-bet, I'm just going to fold there. 3-bet meaning it re-raised by the button. It's really not a hand you want to be calling with out of position. When I say out of position, you'll notice that had I called that, I'd be first to act on each successive street post flop on the flop, turn, and river, and that puts me at a tremendous disadvantage because if my opponent senses that I'm weak, he can either try to bluff and take the pot away, or my opponent, if I start to act strong, he can really decide, well, maybe he's just get out of the way. So it's that extra bit of information that really provides a tremendous advantage for you if you're in position, or a disadvantage if you're out of position. So I can't stress it enough, and you'll see how it really comes into play here throughout the videos that you'll be watching. So I can't stress enough, really, when you're we'll call it out of position when you're going to be first to act post flop, meaning you're either in the small blind, big blind, or under the gun, where post flop in each successive street you're going to be first to act. We call it out of position, and in position if you are going to be last to act on the post flop streets. So and how you want to adjust to or take your positional your position into account at the table is you really want to modify what hands you get involved with pre-flop depending on your position at the table. So a hand like, this is a classic example, a hand like ace 4 offsuit here on the left, I'm in middle position. There's a couple people that folded. I got a min raise under the gun, but there's a couple people left behind to act me. It's just not a hand that you want to be calling a raise with, because one, we have an under the gun raiser who potentially could be showing a lot of strength. Two, we have people left to act behind us that will have position on us throughout the hand, as well as they could re-raise us pre-flop, and then just make us fold and basically just burning money up pre-flop unnecessarily. And third of all, a hand like Ace Four is just. I know a lot of people get excited about playing any Ace cards, but it's just a really difficult hand to play because there's just very few flops that you're happy about. Because even if an ace comes, you're always going to be concerned about, well, does my opponent have a better kicker than me? And so you're not going to be too happy about getting all in unless you flop like aces up or two pair. It's kind of a board that your opponent is not likely to have hit. But you got to think about, well, how often are you hitting hands like two pair? Even a hand like this, like Ace 10 offsuit, when I'm in early position. You have four people left to act behind me who will have position on me. It's just not a hand you want to be splashed around with in these sit and go tournaments. It just gets you into a lot of trouble because the hands that people are going to be calling your raise with are hands that dominate you. When we say dominate in poker, we're saying, well, hands like they say ace jack, ace queen, so that there's just very few hands that you can hit on the flop that you're comfortable with. So even if an ace flops, you can have him back in your mind, or you should at least have in the back of your mind. You definitely don't want to be going broke with top pair aces with a marginal to weak kicker, such as like I would even consider like a kicker of 10 is just not a very good kicker to have in these sit and go tournaments. So you really want to I think the optimal strategy that's been proven by all the top players online is really to play tight in early position in these sit and goes, and then potentially leverage your positional advantage later on if it is folded to you, where you can act strongly and then take down a lot of pots with a continuation bet on the flop. And when we say continuation bet, we're talking about continuing your aggressive stance that you've taken pre-flop by raising, and then since your opponent isn't likely to not have hit the flop, you can often take it down with a continuation bet on the flop where your opponent will be folding. So it's really important not to be messing around in these sit and go tournaments with marginal hands pre-flop. It just gets you into a lot of trouble. Like even like pocket nines here is it's just a really tough hand to play because there's so many flops. Like if I raise, I'm very likely to be getting a lot of callers, and then like there's just so many overcards that are going to hit on the flop, and I'm just going to have no idea where I stand. So I think if you can with a hand like pocket nines or the other types of mid pairs, I think it's definitely best just to, if you think you'll be able to limp in, like if a couple guys have limped ahead of you, it's potentially alright to limp and hope to see a cheap flop with the sole goal of just trying to hit a set being three of a kind. So that you can potentially double up and hit a strong hand. But if you're coming in raising in early position, then you get a couple callers, and then overcards come on the flop, you're just going to have a really tough time trying to figure out what to do. And if you continuation bet and then someone's likely to have hit a piece, it's just going to put you in a tough spot. So I think like definitely the best move at that point is just to fold, or in the early game when you're out of position, i.e. under the gun or under the gun +1 type spots, is just to fold and wait for a better spot. Really, like you'll notice in these types of games at the lower stakes, I'm playing two $16 tournaments. Players just really don't like to fold. So to exploit that, you really have to